Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and on today's episode, Creation Entertainment co-CEO Adam Malin interviews the one and only, the Enigma, Doug Drexler. He has worked on Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, The Next Generation. He's been a makeup artist, illustrator, designer. He's been a scenic artist, visual effects artist. I don't know how he's done it all, but he has been in practically every single department of Star Trek. He's an incredible interview. He's got the best stories, behind the scenes anecdotes. You do not want to miss this one. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Creation Entertainment Podcast.
I'm Adam Malin, and this is the Creation Entertainment Podcast interview. And today we have a very special guest, the one, the only, the legend, the man himself. Welcome, Doug Drexler.
Hey, everybody. How goes it out there?
Doug, it's great to see you again. And as I just mentioned, we missed you in Vegas this year. We got to get you in for the 60th anniversary next year.
You know, I don't know if many people know how far back you and I go. We go back a ways.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to we'll have a long conversation about all of that. But just as a kind of an opener, Doug, you've worn so many hats: makeup artist, designer, visual effects supervisor, illustrator. When somebody asks you, what do you do? How do you even begin to answer that?
I usually say, what era are you referring to? You know, I mean, especially when it comes to Star Trek. I think I held more positions on Star Trek than anybody ever did. You know,
what's the length of your tenure?
It's almost 2 decades of working on Star Trek.
Crazy.
You know, I can't be too bitter.
No, and honestly, all of us, including our viewers, have been through such revolutionary changes in technology. You, as a creative and a craftsman, your tools are constantly evolving. You had to adapt to the new tools, the new methodologies, the new paradigms, or you couldn't have endured in the industry in general.
Yeah, I was really. Some people would say it wasn't fortunate, but I saw it very fortunate to go through that transition where we were going from, stone knives and bearskins to digits. You know, a lot of people couldn't get with that. A lot of creative people were angry about it and saw it as a villainous thing. I mean, when I first started getting into CG, when we had the internet going, I would hear people, ripping CG and saying, "Oh, I could always tell," and it looks like. And my answer always was, "Well, you can only tell the bad stuff. You can't tell the good stuff. It's going right by you. But I mean, I remember when I started in the business, I started with Dick Smith. The makeup godfather.
The one and only legend. For our viewers that don't know Dick, he is considered one of the big fathers of modern day special effects makeup, physical makeup. Yeah.
Well, one of the things about Dick that I really love was that most of his greatest makeups are not really what you would call effects or even creatures. That they were incredible character makeups. I mean, it's like if you saw The Exorcist and you saw the horribly possessed little girl, Linda Blair, you thought that was the makeup of that movie. But when you think that Max von Sydow, when he played the 86-year-old priest, Father Merrin, was only in his 40s, then no one even thinks about that.
That is a really amazing point. Now that I've never really thought about it. I always think of Max as kind of an old guy just because it's now. But you're right. He was only in his 40s when they made the movie. He looked so old.
Well, that was it. I saw The Exorcist, and like a number of years later, a new movie came out with Max von Sydow, and he was young. And I'm going, what the hell is this? And I think that was like an epiphany for me as far as makeup goes, to see that,
I mean, Doug, even before you got into makeup, you were a super fan like me. We're both guys of a certain age growing up in New York. And you're from the Bronx?
Well, I was born in Queens. My father was from the Bronx.
Queens. Yeah. Where in Queens?
Jackson Heights.
Jackson Heights. I mean,
You're still at Jackson Heights?
Fresh Meadows boy, right? We were just a spit away. Anyway, like me in those days in the 60s, you're a fan, and like me, became fascinated by, sci-fi, famous monsters, all of that. But also Star Trek was such a big influence on our life. And what did you go and do?
It was so groundbreaking. It was like nothing else. The thing you have to remember about those days is that in mainstream, it was not popular, and not even really. No, you really didn't get any respect for genre type stuff. Twilight Zone, you had Rod Serling was a well-known, for his teleplays before there was a Twilight Zone. So he brought this gravitas to it. He was one of the first. I mean, there really weren't a lot of movies either. And I can tell you that when I was a kid and I went to school, and if I got caught reading a science fiction novel, I would get me some mockery.
I mean, we were considered social outcasts and
Absolutely.
dweebs, even though we've inherited the earth at this point.
Well, we always knew we would.
We always knew we would. Now, listen, buddy, tell me about the history of Federation Outpost.
Federation Trading Post. Well,
Federation Trading Post.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before that, there was the Save Star Trek campaign, which emboldened all of us that we could have that kind of effect by writing letters and stuff like that. Federation Trading Post, I was working, in my memoir, there's a chapter called Armed in Manhattan.
What year was that?
It had to be like 75 or 76.
That late, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was at the first convention in New York, which I think must have been 71 or 2 or something like that.
72 at the Statler Hilton by the committee. I was there too. We were both at the same show without knowing each other.
No one knew it was going to be a big hit.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember they got way, way, way more people trying to get in there than they ever expected. And I think Leonard Nimoy saw it on the news and came by in the evening on one of the days.
Well, who founded the Federation Trading Post, which, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, was a Star Trek and sci-fi memorabilia store that Doug worked at, or did you actually own it?
Oh, I didn't own it, but Ron Barlow and we managed it. I mean, it was really our store, Right. It was founded, and of course, it would have to come from Berkeley, California, which was a hotbed of fandom because of the college community there. Star Trek was very big with college kids.
Yeah.
And so Chuck Weiss and his girlfriend, Sandy, I can't remember her last name, they started a small Federation Trading Post. It was kind of a hit there. And so they decided they wanted to open one in New York. And I don't remember how they knew Ron Barlow. I mean, Ron, he was doing a lot of genre publishing at the time, the Monster Times, stuff like that. He published reprints of the old classic EC comics. He was known for doing some really cool, only people like us would even know about it.
For our fans that had never heard Ron's name before, he also repped several of the amazing graphic story artists of that period, particularly the Young Turks, guys like Bernie Wrightson, Jeff Jones.
Yeah.
And it's actually the conduit by which we got a lot of the artwork that we did for our early fanzine, Infinity.
Well, Ron was roommates with Bernie. I think Bernie was from Baltimore, and so was Ron.
Yeah.
So that's how they got connected. I eventually got to know Bernie later on.
So how did you come by Federation Trading Post?
Well, I was I was working for a company in Manhattan called Homes Protection, and it was like a private police force. You would answer electronic alarms would go down in warehouses or brownstones, and uh, I was doing that, and that was some crazy stuff. I mean, we ran into some really nutty things. That's a story in itself. But I used to get done at about 10:30 at night, and I would race home to catch The Outer Limits, which was on, I don't know, maybe it was Channel 5 or something, WNEW, I don't know. I would rush home to see that. And of course, then no one had recorders. If you were going to see it, you had to be there.
You had to be there at the
You
time.
missed it.
No doubt you were as fascinated as I was by Projects Unlimited's incredible bears.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, really amazing stuff done by people who were, I mean, Ma Chang the guy was a genius.
Yeah, genius.
Absolutely genius. Well, I mean, he did the tricorder.
I mean, those guys were doing fabrications of prosthetics, costumes, sewing, complete fabrications. I mean, maybe, 20 years ahead of their time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, doing this type of stuff now, you can go on the internet. Like when I was getting into makeup, and I couldn't go on the internet and type in, how do I do a live cast, get 26,000 articles and videotapes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you had to be a real nut.
There was no knowledge base back then.
There wasn't, it's whatever you could dig up, and it would be in a magazine, probably.
Well, I don't remember what year it was, but Gary and I had a store in Mineola on Long Island, creation, sci-fi, store, whatever we called it. And we actually had 3 or 4 of them. And in one day walks a young Doug Drexler. And I didn't know you at the time. And you say to me, hey, would you like it if I let you display some of my masks?
I think I probably came in with John Caglione, my partner.
John Caglione, your partner at the time. Would you like to display some of our masks in the store? And we're like, yes, please. And there were some incredible monster masks. I'm trying to time it out, though, to the incredible success that you had, let's say, on Dick Tracy. What year was Dick Tracy? And I mean, you won an Academy Award for that, which is well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, we were on Dick Tracy like in '89. I guess it probably came out in '90 or something like that. I think
you must have come through us way earlier than that, right?
I don't know.
I'm thinking that you came to because I think our store predates that.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, because if you had done Dick Tracy,
after Dick Tracy, we weren't even in New York City. We were in Los Angeles, so we couldn't have brought you anything. It had to have been before we moved out to do Tracy. It was always our game plan was that we're not going to go to Los Angeles looking for work. We want someone to bring us out there for a job. And it came true.
How did you become a protege of Dick Smith? That's an incredible story itself.
That's like crazy. My whole life has been nothing but crazy. How did that happen? How? Well, I mean, we were talking about me working at Homes Protection, but I ended up at an art supply. Well, there goes my mouse. I ended up at an art supply for architects in Manhattan. And it was like an upper crusty. They didn't have art supplies out where you could find them. You had to go in there knowing what you wanted, Yeah. I relieved Kurt Vonnegut of his credit card. Our company said, relieve him of that card. I swear.
That's great.
But so one of the managers had a Halloween party. And I had been collecting articles because it was the only way, like we were talking about. Turn on some air. I had collected a bunch of articles. I think it was an article that was in Starlog. Eventually made it mainstream, but it came out of Baltimore. I think it was Cinemagic. It was a fanzine for a long time, and I had collected some articles on John Chambers' style of doing Planet of the Apes makeups. And I knew I had that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And the first thing I did was I had to make a life cast. I had to sculpt on it. I had to make molds off of that. I didn't know I could sculpt. I just happened to be pretty good at it because I'd been drawing for a long time.
Yeah.
So once I did a Planet of the Apes makeup, and I knew right then and there that this is it. This is how I can make my jump.
Thrilling.
And so at that point, after the first makeup, and when you do your first makeup, it's a mind altering experience. It like rewires your brain or something. Oh, you have this realization that you could do these amazing things. And of course, even today it's amazing, but think of how amazing it was in the 70s. I mean, we didn't have digital anything. And when I first saw Rocky when it first came out, I'm like, were they giving him injections to make his eyes swell up? No,
I mean, that's, Michael Westmore's genius. But I mean, even back in that era, even not only the methodologies, but the media, the materials that you worked with were so limited.
Yeah. Well, and also the other thing was that there was no such thing as behind the scenes material on DVDs where you could see how things were done. People had no idea, really.
Yeah.
So I did this makeup, and that was it. I was possessed after that. I was making molds on anything, like a bean can. I couldn't stop myself. Now, you may remember, I know you know Doug Murray.
Doug Murray's a dear friend of ours at Creation, and we've worked with them for many, many decades.
Well, the Federation Trading Post, the store was a magnet for Star Trek fans, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, Alan Asherman would hang out, and Doug Murray would be there.
Good Alan.
And so I knew Doug, and he had like a big collection of Planet of the Apes stuff. He told me that he had done an article on John Chambers, and Chambers took him out to the garage and opened it up and said, "Take whatever you want."
Unbelievable.
Like the statue of Proteus from the first Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, he had the Dr. Zaius makeup.
Zaius makeup. He had Charlton Heston's spacesuit.
So it's sick.
I mean, it was just amazing. So now I was hooked on makeup, and I knew he had stuff. And so I asked him if I could come out and visit and see that stuff, which I did.
In Lindenhurst.
Yeah. Now I went out to his place, and Doug sometimes he's kind of hard to get a read on. It's all happening back here.
He's very internal. Like, always was very internal. Yes.
So I never really know how to read Doug. I knew I liked him, and that we had a lot in common. But so I brought some pictures of the stuff I had done. And he's looking at it, and he's not really saying too much. And I don't know whether it's any good. What do I know? And he says, "You know what? I just did an interview with Dick Smith. I think it was for the Monster Times." He says, "I'm going to give you his telephone number." And I was stunned. I mean, if you had hit me in the side of the head with a 2x4, that's about, because just the whole idea. First, I know now he lives like just north of New York City. He's not in California. We're within striking distance of each other.
I'm just saying, I can't believe it was Doug who connected you to Dick Smith. That's crazy.
Doug got me started.
It's great.
I tell him that every time I talk to him.
All right, so you show your stuff to Dick, and Dick says what?
Well, it took me 2 weeks to build up the courage to call Dick Smith on the telephone once I had the number.
Yeah.
And when I did, he kept me on the phone. It was like I couldn't get off the phone. He was like giving me information and where to get
so
hit.
Awesome.
Usually a lot of makeup artists or special effects guys, very secretive, almost like a magician.
They're proprietary, but not Dick. Dick always wanted to share his knowledge with the industry, which was very remarkable about him.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was in North Carolina, I think it was a Michael Mann movie, I think. Carlo Rambaldi was down there doing some movie. I don't remember what the hell it was. And there were also 2 Italian kids who were visiting from Italy. Wanted to talk to us because we work with Dick Smith and we do makeup. And they went and they talked to Carlo. Before they came to us, though, Carlo comes in and says, "There's 2 Italian kids. There's the 2 Italian kids. Don't tell them anything. It's important that we keep these secrets and not let them know anything."
Oh, that's so funny. And by the way,
for
our viewers that aren't familiar with Carlo, he did E.T. for Steven Spielberg. He did some of the robotics for Alien for Ridley Scott. Carlo had a kind of a spotted career. He had some successes, some failures, but that's funny that, like you say, a lot of artists, special effects artists and or special effects studios are very proprietary, but not Dick.
not Dick. And so when we met the kids, we gave them all the information they wanted. you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had started communicating with Dick Smith. It would either have to be on the telephone or write a letter. It was the only way. I didn't want to bother him on the phone, every 5 minutes. So I did write a bunch of letters, and he would send me mimeographs. Remember mimeographs? Send me mimeograph sheets of how to make his blood formula and, all kinds of stuff. And I guess about 3 months later, I was mixing a bucket of plaster. I think I still have it. I was mixing a bucket of plaster in the morning because all I could do was do makeup. I was crazed. And the phone rings and it's Dick, and he says, I'm starting a movie with Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie and Susan Sarandon that Tony Scott is directing, and I'm going to need an assistant. And he offered me an assistant's position. And that bucket of plaster I was mixing, it solidified in the bucket along with my life. And after that, I popped it out. I kept it and I wrote all the makeup jobs on it. I still have it.
Oh, that's crazy.
23 years.
That's crazy.
So, I got to say, I didn't know whether to stand up or sit down. I was so excited. And I remember he said, I can't afford to pay you much. Is $60 a day okay? Now, I think I was making
pretty good to me for that period.
It was like six. Is that okay? So I worked on The Hunger for like 6 months, and it really was a college of prosthetic knowledge.
Yeah.
I saw him and Kevin Haney sculpt like 6 stages of old age makeup for David Bowie.
By the way, that Bowie's transformation in that movie is pretty historic.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Where she is carrying David Bowie's withered ancient body into that's a dummy I made.
Fabulous. That body was creepy.
It was the best job you could possibly get on for your first job.
That's fantastic.
Of course, I got to know everybody in the Northeast. It was kind of a Northeast clique, the Dick Smith group. And so John was going to cover the set. They had a few scenes they were shooting in Manhattan. And so Dick asked John to come up to talk to him about it. That's when I met Caglione. He was going to cover the set for a couple of days.
Right.
And, we hit it off right away. Like 6 months after The Hunger, 3 to 6 months after The Hunger, I guess, John called me on the phone and he said, Dick recommends I'm going to be doing, it was Amityville 3. And he says, would you mind going to Mexico City? Right now, I don't think I'd really want to go. I'm getting lazy. But then I was so excited, I couldn't believe it. I'm going to go to Mexico. And that was the beginning of our partnership because we share the same kind of excitability and exuberance and passions. So we had so much fun. It was absolutely, we could hurt each other by making each other laugh.
How did the Cotton Club project come about?
Well, Dick Smith recommended John, if I do remember correctly. I think they probably tried to get Dick, and Dick probably didn't want to deal with Francis Ford Coppola anymore. And
is Francis that difficult because he's a genius?
Well, every director is difficult to some extent,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know the details. Of course, Dick was thrilled to have worked with him, but sometimes they could be. The Exorcist. Dick tried to get excused off of The Exorcist. That the director William Friedkin was a maniac.
He had that reputation. Billy Friedkin definitely had a reputation for being crazy.
So Dick actually went in with John to the producers to pitch him, and that's how John got Cotton Club. I think it probably was after Starman that John and I incorporated as Caglione and Drexler.
Yeah.
I worked, Dick called me to come to work on Starman. That is his right-hand guy, which was crazy to me. I was really nervous. I had to go. He says, come up to the house and Lynn will make dinner for us and we can talk about the project. This story, man. So we have dinner. It's great, but I'm very nervous, even though I just got done working with him for 6 months. He is Dick Smith, and now I'm not just an assistant. I'm a main assistant. And I'm afraid I want to sound smart, but sometimes if you want to sound smart too bad hard, you sound dumb, you know? And anyway, he's sitting at the end of the table, and I'm like, I could reach over and touch him. That's how close we're, and I'm talking and I'm using my hands a lot like this, and he's buttering saltine crackers and eating them. And
Right.
there's a block of butter between us. And I'm gesticulating, and my pinky hooks the block of butter and flips it up in the air. And it was like that bone in 2001 where it goes. And
Yeah.
Dick and I both follow it up. And then it comes down at normal speed, right in his lap, right in Dick Smith's lap.
Okay.
And now we just looked at each other, and I just freaking burst out laughing.
Yeah.
Couldn't help myself. I'm like, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Nothing worse is going to happen. I'm not afraid anymore. And he started laughing. And after that, we were just like pals.
That's wonderful.
Once I had that crazy moment.
All right. So now, you and John, now you're a functioning entity. And am I right that really Warren Beatty was sort of the driving force behind Dick Tracy? Was he sort of the showrunner of that project?
Oh, it was entirely his. I mean, he directed, he produced it, he was starred in it, and he was the force behind us.
I mean, I love the movie. I think the movie had a mixed level of
You know what?
I love it.
It's unique in the same way that Star Trek: The Motion Picture is.
Yeah.
It's different from everything else. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people do, 2001 is that way somewhat as well. Warren made his own movie. Probably not the way I would have done it. But,
so stylized.
Yeah.
And I mean, your villain makeups were possibly the most memorable aspect of the film.
Well, I like to think so.
Yeah.
The thing was that because we came from the Northeast, some of our friends were some of the best character makeup artists in the business because they came from Dick Smith.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Haney was out here with us. He's amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we tend to be I'm still this way. I was this way with Star Trek and still am, that I want to stick to the continuity. So we wanted our characters to reflect what Chester Gould had done. I think that
they were totally 3D personifications of the Chester Gould characters. That's what I loved about them.
Well, I mean, honestly, I remember we had a makeup lab in Brooklyn that Bob Kelly, the famous Bob Kelly, let us put our lab in the back of his cosmetics factory. Charge. And he had his assistant build it. I just did a drawing of what I wanted. He built this lab for us. We were sitting there, and I'm reading Variety. And there's an article that says that Warren Beatty's going to do Dick Tracy. I'm like, hey, John, Warren Beatty's going to do Dick Tracy. And we both just looked at each other and said, whoever gets that's winning an Academy Award. We knew sight unseen. Because the potential for makeup was like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me about the shoot and about working with each of the villain actors. I mean, you had some pretty unbelievable guys there, like Pacino. I mean, tell me about some of the actors and the experience of developing their makeup.
First of all, you have to remember that us doing a big makeup job in Los Angeles from New York City is an impossibility. Yeah. There's two different unions. There's an East Coast union and a West Coast union. Yeah. They don't like people coming from the East Coast to do makeup on the West Coast. When Dick Smith did stunt masks for, I think it was a funny thing happened on the way to the farm, he had to come out and take his makeup test to just make some rubber mask, pullover mask for stunt people.
Yeah.
When we were contacted by John Landau, not John Landis, John Landau. He ended up being James Cameron's right-hand man.
Yeah, I know John.
He just, he comes from our neck of the woods too.
He's an awesome guy.
We worked with him on a bunch of projects before Dick Tracy. Wow. He liked us.
Yeah.
He was been brought in on Dick Tracy. Milena Canonero was a costume designer.
But what was John's role on Dick Tracy?
Well, he was a producer.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Oh, yeah. He's such a talent. All right. Okay.
The humor, That's what made John great. He was funny, you know.
Yeah.
We just loved it. He liked us too.
I mean, he's James Cameron's right-hand man at this point.
Yeah, well, he passed about 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's very, very sad. Very sad.
And it's shocking to me because he's one of the reasons why we got Dick Tracy. Melina Canonero, costume designer from Cotton Club, went to Dick Tracy. She knew John from there.
And by the way, her costume work on that movie was unbelievable.
Not only is she brilliant, but she was beautiful and charming, and you just loved being around her,
Just for Dick's, that wool, that incredible wool, yellow wool overcoat is just unbelievable.
Yeah, the shapes of things, the way the material hung. Really. But now, Dick Silver was a production designer. He did all the Warren Beatty's movies. He's like a genius. He came from New York, so he was behind us. He had to make that jump himself.
Right.
So I know that Warren had talked to all the big shots, and Dick Smith said, "Well, you're never going to get it, chaps. It's either going to be Rick Baker or Greg Canham or big marquee names, Rob Bottin." Right. So we were out in Los Angeles. We were shooting a movie in Toronto, and they had a couple of scenes at Liberace's house, and they had to get. We came out for that.
Oh, cool!
They were able to get a waiver for that, and we get a call from John Landau who says, "Warren wants to meet you. Can you come up to his house on Mulholland Drive?"
Crazy!
Like, oh my freaking God!
Amazing.
So they sent us the script, and we went up to the house, and it was just like going, in The Incredibles when Mr. Incredible.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's like you talk to the camera and the gate opens up and a dog.
He was arguably one of the 3 or 4 biggest stars in Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, people don't remember just how big
he was. Big.
Was.
Huge. He was big. Yeah.
Huge. And carried a lot of weight in every way. And so we went to his house, and his assistant says, "Go wait in a screening room. He'll be with you in a few minutes." And we waited about 45 minutes, actually. I'm sure it was calculated. And he comes boom, 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 boom down the stairs. And he's soaking wet in nothing but a towel. Water is like dripping off of him. And he sits down and he says, doesn't even say hello. He sits down and he goes, "Okay, what can we do?" And I remember I said, "Do you mean to make the movie better or makeup wise?" He says, "To make the movie better." And John and I are both stunned because you never get asked that question. That's a question that you're never asked. So anyway, threw out some ideas, and he was very thoughtful about it, and says, "Okay, can you write me up a basic treatment and kind of a budget and get it to me in a couple of days?" And we're like, "Yeah." And so we did that, and we were in Toronto, and it was about 3 a.m. John and I had hotel rooms that adjoined each other. And at 3 a.m, the door, like the James Arness in The Thing, where he bashes the door open and there's just that silhouette in the light. Caglione going, "We got it!" It was like the first time on Ghostbusters where they get their first call. We were jumping on the bed, man. I mean, no kidding. We were jumping on the bed, laughing, screaming.
Let's get on to the stars that you worked on and the makeups.
There were so many amazing. Jimmy Caan was crazy. I mean, he was really wild.
His character was.
What's that?
James Caan's character was
Spud Spaldoni. He has a meeting. He goes into the meeting room, and he's like to Big Boy, "Why you? Why you?" And when we had to do his makeup, we had to go up to his house in Hollywood Hills, and he's Sonny Corleone. If you saw Sonny Corleone in The Godfather beating the shit out of someone with a garbage can lid,
of course,
that's not acting.
No, he was a brawler.
But he's a funny guy. He is really freaking funny. And we get to the house, and he bursts out of the door with like an Italian tank top saying, "Hey, come on in. I bet you heard I'm going to be a pain in the ass." We had to do his life cast. He had a couple of boys that he was raising. I don't know if they were adopted. They're actually his. I don't know. But he had like a Western bunkhouse for the kids. And on one end of it was a gym. And he sits down on the bench press and says, "Come on, let's do it right now." his life cast, and we did his life cast on the bench, and
Great.
uh, he can never stop. He never stops talking. Alginate is running down his face, and bubbles are coming out of his mouth because he's still talking, and he's got me by one arm and swinging me around. It was a riot. So, but his makeup, I was sitting there with his life cast, and I put a nose on him, a Marlon Brando nose. And I said, "Hey, John, look what happens when you put a Marlon. I mean, he looks like Brando." So we decided that's what we were going to do. It's a simple makeup, a Brando nose, and we're not going to tell him what we're thinking. And when we put the nose on him, he jumped out of the chair and he stuffed cotton in his cheeks and started going, "Look what they done to my."
Oh, he knew it. He knew it. That's great.
It was hilarious.
All right. How about Pacino? I mean, unbelievable.
Well, Pacino is a unique character. He plays very bombastic characters, but he's actually kind of shy. He would be quiet. We got along great with him, but as that makeup would go on him, he'd fall asleep while the makeup was going on, and every time he would wake up and look in the mirror, he was a little more that guy, to the point where he was entirely big boy. He'd look at us like he never saw us before and go, "Who are you guys? I'm getting that," and he'd run out of the trailer. And he was a maniac all day, slapping people on their butts and stuff Al Pacino would never do.
Big Boy is arguably the biggest villain in the film. I mean, he's like, just in terms of,
well,
so larger than life.
There's nobody else that Al Pacino's ever played quite like that. And he was nominated for an Academy Award. If you can believe it, a comedy character, really.
Yeah. Yeah. How about Dustin Hoffman? Mumbles.
It was another one who was just unbelievable. He is so much fun. I mean, that guy is funny all the time. He loves telling dirty jokes. Can't really do that anymore. He loves telling dirty jokes. And he was, I remember we had like a day and a half to put his makeup together because he got him at the last minute. And I remember when we got it on him, he looked in the mirror and he said, "If you'd had any more time, you'd fucked it up."
It's such a memorable makeup, and the character was so great.
He's hilarious. He's hilarious.
Did you do any of the cosmetic makeup in the film? Like, let's say in Madonna, did you get to work with Madonna?
I think, was it Leonard Engelman? I can't remember, but we didn't want to do that.
Yeah. You were just the prosthetic jobs.
We just did all the character makeups.
Got it.
Henry Silva was another one. My God, the guy, I'm a big Frank Sinatra fan. And Henry was part of, the Rat Pack. He was like an honorary Rat Pack member. He was in Ocean's 11. And plus, he was one of my favorite Outer Limits episodes.
I was going to say Henry Silva's a veteran of a couple of Outer Limits episodes.
Yeah. First of all, that face is amazing.
And Star Trek, too. I think Henry was in a Star Trek episode, too.
I don't remember that. I remember he was on Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
So he would, I get to listen to, Sinatra stories in Las Vegas. I remember he was saying he was thinking of retiring, and we're like, "No, Henry, you can't retire," and he's like, "Yeah, I have more people to kill," because he's killed a lot of people. Johnny goes, "What's your address again?"
Forgive me, Doug. I have to rein us in. Our time is getting away from us. What was it like to win the Academy Award for that movie? How great was that?
Well, I mean, of course, there's nothing that can compare to that. I mean, it even beats a Nobel Prize, I think. But I mean, we thought that if we didn't win, there was something wrong. I mean, there really was nothing that could compare or compete. I remember we did a makeup bake-off at the Motion Picture Academy, where you have to get up and talk about the work, and they have some scenes. And on the way out, as we're going out, Warren Beatty steps out from behind the curtain. He actually came down for that. That was really, Warren was amazing when it came to the makeup. We got literally almost no notes on anything. The only makeup we got notes on was the blank. The guy with no face. But everything else that we showed him, he'd just look at it and shake his head and go, "You guys are getting the statue."
It's an amazing point in your career. But now I'm very curious, how did your connection with Star Trek: The Next Generation happen?
Well, we were still doing makeup out of Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and we had the lab at Bob Kelly's in Red Hook. And I had been reading about, that Justman and Roddenberry had been given the go-ahead to do Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I was saying to Caglione, I'm freaking out because they're doing Star Trek with Roddenberry and Justman, and I'm not there. And John says, well, why don't you just call Bob? And I'm like, what do you mean, just call Bob? I can't. And I just stop and I go, well, why can't I? I'm in the business. I could call Bob Justman. And so John basically, got me on the phone to call Bob Justman. I got the number for the Paramount switchboard, and I said, I'd like to speak to Robert H. Justman in the production office. And they put me through. I didn't get a secretary. I got Bob Justman.
Right.
And that was like totally unbelievable. And he invited me out. I went out. They didn't have sets yet. They were still writing, Farpoint, I think.
Yep, that's at the Hart Building on the Paramount lot.
Bob kept me with him all day. I went to meetings with ILM. He introduced me to Eddie Milkis, who was there, who I was doing this to.
Yeah.
And while I was in there with Milkis and Justman, Gene Roddenberry bursts in the room and says, I've got it. The captain stops the ship, turns around, and surrenders. And I'm like, with my jaw here, Roddenberry's right here. And Gene looks at me, and Bob Justman says, Gene, I don't think you realize what you just did to this guy. So I was like, oh my God, how would I love to work with these guys? I remember Bob took out a little cardboard box about this big, opened it up, and there was a hand-carved model of the Enterprise D that Greg Jean made. The windows were penciled on it. I remember Bob holding it up and going, not a straight line on it, he said. And in producer speak, that means money.
Yeah.
So he's proud of that. Although the original series Enterprise is still the best one of all of them, as far as I'm concerned.
The gig that was being offered you really was a more comprehensive gig. It was kind of an overall art department gig, was it not?
Well, when we finished Dick Tracy, they were doing season 2 of Next Generation, season 2. As soon as we were done on Dick Tracy, I basically went to Paramount and cornered Mike Westmore and begged him to let me come work on Star Trek. And he's like, well, you're doing big pictures. And I remember you being there. I remember, it's in my memoir. I told you I was going to leave makeup. And you said, Drexler, are you stupid?
Me?
Yeah, yes, you.
Funny.
It was hilarious. It was so funny.
Well, listen, I mean, we all know Michael Westmore is a legend.
Oh.
The opportunity to work with Michael is irresistible.
As you know, I mean, he's such a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
That getting to spend your days with him under any situation is fantastic. I've never seen him lose his cool, ever. And it was when I begged him and he let me come to work. And it was a dream come true. I was a fan of the show by the time I got there. I was the only guy who could be a geeky fan on stage and get away with it because I just came from working with Warren Beatty. There's a moment where we're in the transporter chamber and Jonathan Frakes has some shine on his face and I have a powder puff. And as I'm puffing it, he's going like this, leaning against it, And he says, Dougie, is this how you touch Warren?
Now, Doug, are you instrumental in the actual design of certain alien characters? And if so, which of the characters were you instrumental in the design of?
I never really. Mike always pretty much when I was there, created the characters. I was deeply involved with, Kalis, when they did amazing Klingon episode where Worf has to go defend his father's name.
Yeah.
The guy who played the lead, Charles Cooper, I think his name was. I sculpted that. It was a very distinctive headpiece, and you really couldn't use it on anyone after that. You'd recognize it. I was very deeply involved with Lal, doing Lal.
Yeah. Data's Lal.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I have a story about that. It's in Mike's book. If you want to hear it, let me know.
Well, so then, and then when did the whole idea of digital work start to rear its head? Which series were you on at the time when all of a sudden it was like, well, we're going to start moving over to digital?
Well, they started using some digital elements, I think, in a space battle. Maybe it was Sacrifice of Angels, a monstrously huge number of Starfleet ships. And they had some background ships that were CG.
Yeah.
We were the first department that started using computers, graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I ever touched a computer was for Mike Okuda. And when he hired me, I didn't even have one yet. I went and bought a computer that day, and I didn't have to start the job for 2 weeks, and I crammed on a computer. So
And when did you start working with Michael? Which show was this?
it was I was supposed to start. I was supposed to fill in for someone who was leaving graphics on Next Generation, but she got cold feet and she didn't leave. So I didn't start in the art department until the first season of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And
Which was a groundbreaking show.
yeah, an amazing show, and took a lot of abuse in the beginning. A lot of people didn't like it and they ripped it. And of course, that is kind of par for the course. There's always going to be someone who's not happy,
It's always going to be trolls. The best thing you can do is not to listen to them, honestly.
Well, you see, I came onto Star Trek and started designing, like the NX and stuff like that, when there was a very early internet. And it was, I don't think any of us were prepared for the kind of bile that you would get from some people. And it made you doubt yourself sometimes. At a certain point, you learned that you can't please everybody. Those people are always going to be there. Half the people are going to love what you did. Half the people are going to hate it. That's just the way it is. Just do the best job you can. Don't let it get to you psychologically. I see people online, crying about being body shamed and stuff like that. Who cares what they say?
So Doug, as long as we're talking about Enterprise and the NX-01, did you design the ship?
I was the main guy.
The ship is gorgeous. It has a kind of a submarine aesthetic, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, that was part of the idea, part of the plan.
Yeah.
It's the most thought out of any of the starships. I don't care which one you name, and I know, Mike and I were very close, still are, and we spent lots of time just me sitting in his office talking about, well, how would this work? Where does this go? What should be here? I think that we were doing now, and Andy Probert is great at this, and Rick Sternbach is great at this. I think that a lot of the stuff that we see now tends to be science fiction design rather than aircraft logic design. We try to do aircraft logic, and unless you're really into that or understand it, then you just do a science fiction design, which could, I think, be kind of like sci-fi fluff.
I think going for what has more of a martial military design is a really smart design.
And it's also an ironclad compared to the original series ship.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people saying, why does it look more advanced than the original series ship? And I'm like, it doesn't. It looks like an ironclad. The original series ship is smooth and sleek like a marine animal.
Yeah.
That's the futuristic one. How come you see that one as being old-fashioned?
Right.
I was always amazed by that. So we had a couple of months. Originally, it was Herman and John Eves were doing it. And I was up at Foundation Imaging. I had gone to Foundation Imaging for 2 years and worked on Voyager for a while and some other of their projects, which was my college of CG knowledge.
Did an early Foundation work on Babylon 5?
Yeah, that's where Ron Thornton came to fame.
Yeah.
Ron dragged television into CG, kicking and screaming all the way.
Yeah.
And he did Babylon 5. It was the first time that I know of that anything like that had been done. I mean, when I was on working for Dick Smith, I remember we got a copy of American Cinematographer came in the mail, and on the cover was a story about the last starfighter. And although the ships and stuff looked like a video game, and they were supposed to really, it was about a video game, you could see the writing on the wall then. And I knew it was going to come from makeup eventually too, which it really has. You don't youthen people with makeup anymore. And a lot of times they don't age them with makeup. It's done in a computer.
Yeah.
that's part of another reason why I thought it was a good time to move on. I mean, look, I didn't really grow up wanting to be a makeup artist. I wanted to be an illustrator or designer. The art department was calling. Um, so anyway, John and Herman were working on the NX, and John had done, 25 or 30 designs that were all good. But these guys, producers, tend to want to work on it until there's no more time, and then they'll pick the one they want.
Yeah.
They don't really know what they want. I mean, you hear so many times, well, I don't know what it is I want, but I'll know it when I see it. Wow, that could be a slippery slope. So you can be ready for them to work until the very last second.
In all fairness, isn't Herman, as production designer, his strong suit is more interior environments than necessarily shipbuilding, right?
Well, I mean, you know, Herman, one, has a great sensibility for almost anything that you're doing.
Yeah.
He's not really a sketcher. He is a designer. He'd rather bring somebody in who knows how to use a computer or, can really draw. What Herman did was put the right people together, work with them in a way where they felt like they were having fun, and also be the go-between to say Rick Herman.
He's an amazing production design boss.
He built a department with all of us. It was a big family. I mean, Star Trek behind the scenes used to be about family. I think it's more about industry right now.
Yeah.
I was up at Foundation. They ran out of time. Mike got the brilliant idea saying to Herman, well, look, Herman, why don't we bring Doug back from Foundation Imaging, and he could bring his computer knowledge. And Herman said, great idea. And he called me up and he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Come back and design an enterprise. And I said, Foundation's been really good to me. I have to give them 2 weeks notice. I can't just leave. And Herman said, oh, that's no problem. What time do you get off? So after working all day long at Foundation Imaging, I'd come home and be sitting on my front porch waiting for me. And then we would go in the house and work for like 4 or 5 hours then. I was like exhausted. But would I trade it? Nope.
I mean, what an incredible design you came up with. So memorable. And the ship is it's so gorgeous and incredible.
People are when it first came out, you had this crazy war going on online. As we get further away from that, you're getting people who are looking at it for itself.
Yeah.
And many, many people are realizing that as close as you look, you will find something you expect to see.
Yeah.
One of the things Star Trek fans don't like is to watch a show and a fleet arrives and they're all the same ship, like a rubber stamp. Stamp, 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 stamp. They look at the ship and they can't find a phaser strip. They can't find an airlock. They can't find a warp core egress. They can't find. That's what they want. People buy books and tech manuals and they memorize the stuff. And when you throw that out the window, it's insulting.
No.
It's kind of upsetting. I spent all this time memorizing and now you guys are just going to throw it away. So when Picard happened, I had been talking to this guy on my Facebook Messenger, Dave Glass, and we hit it off. And it was just one of those Star Trek things where you meet someone you never met before. And it's like you've known them for years and you can have, discussions. And then one day he says, I'm the new production designer on Picard. I'm like, what? I had no idea. And he says, I want to get the band back together. That means like Mike and Denise and John Eves will be there too. And so we took over the ships.
And we're going to talk about Dave and Picard and the modern era of Star Trek, but intervening in the middle was Orville.
Yeah.
So how did Orville come about?
Well,
I really think it's kind of a love letter to Star Trek and a sort of reinvention of it at the same time.
Well, Seth MacFarlane loves Star Trek. I mean, you could go on YouTube and find him as a kid doing his own fan films in the garage.
Yeah.
He loves it. A friend of mine, Jeff Mandel, who's been on Star Trek, and he came with me from New York. He was at the Federation Training Post. Yeah. He's a successful graphic designer. He worked on some show with Robert Strohmeyer, who was the art director on Orville.
Yeah. And
he went to Jeff to get him to come work on the show, and Jeff was busy. And he recommended me. Now, Robert really is not a geek. He's an art director. doesn't really know who I am at all. And so Jeff gave him my number, and I spoke to him, and he invited me down to 20th Century, where we had a meeting, and we basically hit it off. There's a shared sense of humor. We laugh at the same things, and we knew we liked each other right away. As a matter of fact, on the way out, he said, "Look, I don't usually do this after a meeting, but if you want the job, it's yours."
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up on the Orville, and it was great fun. What was interesting really was that usually if I work on a Star Trek project, like with Dave Bless, they know who I am. They know my experience.
Yeah.
Stephen Lineweaver, the production designer, and Robert, they didn't really know much about me at all. Nothing really. So to work in an environment where I haven't built any cred up, they don't really even know what my background is. They've seen my work. That was really interesting because you have to build a trust. And I remember I watched the series with Dorothy, and I remember there were a few things I made notes on. One was I thought engineering looked underpowered, and that the back of the bridge was barren.
Yeah, the bridge kind of had a softer, more open design than most Trek bridges.
Well, it's closer to the Enterprise D bridge. It's like a smaller ship in the era of the Enterprise D. It's partly living room, partly.
Yeah, it's kind of a residential feel, which, really doesn't really read well for really, a ship
Well,
that
I
more of
love
a martial quality.
I think the D bridge is an absolute classic. And I love where Gene was going with it. And they have kind of returned to cockpits now that Gene is gone. I'd love to know where Gene would have gone from that point.
Well, the D bridge is elegant, carpeted and good wood and all that, but to me, it doesn't really reel like an actual, military bridge.
I think that Gene was always trying. It's like your cell phone. When you look at your first cell phone with an antenna and buttons, if you have a parrot, the parrot rips the buttons out of the cell phone. And now you look at your cell phone now, and like someone from the 60s would go, well, there's no controls on it. It's all smooth.
Oh, yeah.
That's where Gene wanted to make a statement that they had moved ahead.
Aesthetically. Did you have much interaction with Seth MacFarlane himself?
Very little. I don't think I even actually spoke to him until we finished season 2 of Ted. We actually talked finally. When you're on a show, people are in a hurry. There's not much time to, people in the art department you have time to goof around with. But Seth would pass my desk every day, and we never really even talked to each other at all.
Talk about working with Dave on Picard, because that was definitely a big step forward for you.
Well, we were not warmly welcomed by the new era of Star Trek. As a matter of fact, they would rather we not be involved because they don't want to be told, well, you can't do that. This is what happened in episode. We were continuity freaks, and that goes for the technology as well. That to them, that kind of holds you up. They wanted to have a free reign to do whatever they wanted and change things, and they didn't want to have to think about what the hell a phasing strip is. To them, that just sounded like trouble. And then the other thing, of course, is that if you bring in a production designer to design the show, they've got a crew that they've developed over the years that they want to bring in.
Yeah.
Some of them may not be particularly Star Trek fans. I've been in situations when I worked on Picard, talking to people on visual effects saying, why are you guys trying to make this? There are some people, not all of them, who want to make it more like Star Wars. I'm like, well, why would we want to make it more like Star Wars? Star Wars is Star Wars. Star Trek is something else.
Yeah.
I remember the last conversation I had like that. I said, well, look, at the end of the day, I work for Gene Roddenberry, and that's what I'm always going to push for. Yeah. And so when Dave brought us in, also, I didn't know he was going to ask me to do ships with John Eves. I thought he was going to bring me in to do graphics. And the last thing I wanted to do was ships, because they don't look at anything as close as they look at the ship. They're looking really close at that ship. And that's becomes an endless slippery slope. And I'm like, God, I don't want to do ships. I think.
Well, and they were revisiting ships and, kind of space stations that were iconic ones from the movies and from the past.
Yeah, well, it's just that Picard season 2 and 3 Terry didn't get to do the storyline he wanted to do till season 3.
Yeah. Terry McTallis we're referring to.
Terry Metalis.
Yeah.
The thing about not since the Roddenberry era and the Rick Berman era, where everybody in the art department was a Star Trek geek. We knew everything inside and out. We were there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Season 2 and 3 of Picard, between Dave and Terry, they reformed that. They wanted to have that sensibility come back.
Yeah.
And I remember we did the new Stargazer. And there is a scene, and where you see it for the first time, the camera starts looking down at the hull, and it does this turn as the ship slides underneath it. It was a long, loving shot. And I remember, I don't know who it was online, I saved it, TrekCore or something like that, said, we haven't had a look at a starship like this since those old days. And everything was there that they wanted to see. They could pick things out. They knew what they were. Part of the joy of Star Trek is being in the know. Once you take out, they can't be in the know anymore because you changed it last season. That takes out part of what's wonderful about Star Trek. When they saw Stargazer, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, this is the stuff we like. This is the stuff we love. Whoever's behind it is putting everything that should be there in the right place.
Well, also in taking classic designs and still kind of making them fresh without losing the soul of what made them in the first place.
Yeah. That's an art.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the latest production trends, such as virtual production, LED volume, environments, as well as entities like Unreal Engine that are sort of, production assist you in the image generation process.
I mean, even on TED, there was Unreal Engine being done to do storyboards. It's being used now. It's a big bomb, honestly, in the middle of a creative community. There's a lot of people there's a lot of jobs that, for instance, if you start doing research or start to develop a project, you used to bring in some artists and they would start doing designs. Now, you could use, AI like Midjourney or something like that and write prompts and suggest and do a whole bunch of different things. We're dealing with someone who's not getting paid, not going to argue with you. You don't have to, there's no other it's just the producer and the director, and they have somebody who knows how to write prompts correctly and develop. A lot of stuff is going to go by the wayside. People were scared by CG back in the the 90s. This is like
just one more form of technology changing the industry, and either craftspeople adapt or they'll end up out of work.
Well, the thing is that there's only so much adapting you could do. You can learn how to write prompts properly, but visual effects houses are going out of business like crazy. You just don't need all those people to do that anymore.
Look at the prosthetic houses. Those are all but gone now. So it's just
the
nature of technology.
Driven creativity is going to be eliminated, and that's just the way it is. And that's look, people don't write books by hand anymore. You have printing press.
Yeah.
You won't find anyone who does that anymore. Some people do calligraphy for fun, but it's like that's gone forever and ever and ever.
Doug, let's take a step aside for a couple of minutes. I know you, like me, have an obsession with the World's Fair. 1964, New York City. I've been to your house. I've seen your huge collection of World's Fair memorabilia. Just talk for a moment or two about your passion for the World's Fair, and so particularly viewers that aren't that familiar with it, why it was so significant.
Well, big corporations used to use World Fairs to bring their latest research and technology and put on little, shows where people could see this stuff, how it works. There wasn't television yet. There wasn't internet. It was the only way. You had to take it to the people. So, and there still are World's Fairs around the world, but they're not like they used to be.
Yeah.
There was a big World's Fair in 1939 in New York City. And then years later in 64, on the very same spot that the 39 fair was. this fair was like, it was only 20 years since the end of World War II. Companies, American companies were booming. They were making money hand over fist. The rest of the world had been pounded flat by the war. So the United States was the powerhouse. And so these companies had a lot of money to spend to do amazing exhibits. Get Walt Disney to do this one. General Motors had the Futurama, which was designed, the greatest guys from their design teams did moon bases and underwater cities, and people would take a ride through time. I mean, there was Walt Disney's Magic Skyway for Ford, which was you would ride a car through time. There'd be dinosaurs.
So great. So great.
You'd never seen anything like it. First of all, I mean, like I said, there's no internet. Television was the most advanced thing that was going on, and there were only 3 networks at the time.
Yeah.
So I knew that they were doing the World's Fair. I started seeing architectural renderings in like the Daily News magazine, or and I could see that it was, yes, there was lots of international exhibits going on, which was amazing, but there was so much futurism and sci-fi being done at the fair. For a kid like me, who grew up on, I mean, by the time I was 11, I'd read everything H.G. Wells had ever written, or Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I was, and comics too. I mean, Stan Lee started writing Marvel comics in like 61 or, well, before that, but became famous with the Fantastic Four.
Well, and of course, the great Jack Kirby.
Oh, Jack, well, that I look back at some of that stuff today, and the epic stories they were doing were just absolutely unbelievable. And the thing about comics was that the only thing you've got paper and you got ink, and you got one guy gets somebody to draw it, when you do a giant effects-driven movie, you know what that costs and how many people you need to do it. You can't, I saw an interview with Stan Lee where he was saying people didn't like Daredevil's yellow costume. And they were writing in complaining. He says, so what we did is we did focus groups, and we had people in and we questioned them. He goes, no, that's not what happened. I just said, you can do that then. One guy can make a decision. You didn't have to check with the board, So comics, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby especially were able to do far out crazy things that no one had ever seen before.
Yeah. So
I was growing up on that. And now I was seeing this amazing stuff being built in Flushing Meadow. And when it opened, my parents took me and my sister, and I was beside myself. I mean, I just was crazy over it. My father had a television repair shop like 2 blocks from the World's Fair. Of course, the fair was only there 2 summers.
Yeah.
If I was Walt Disney and I said, I'm going to build Disney World, but I'm taking it down in 2 years, you'd say, that's insane. But that's exactly what they did. Yeah. They built this incredible fair, and after 2 years, they took it down.
Even though there are still a few architectural remnants of the fair there.
The Unisphere, everyone knows that. The New York State Pavilion, that looks like Jetsons buildings, which people have tried to get torn down for years.
Well, it is crumbling, and it is a hazard.
Well, they have been working on it. I mean, it's been painted, and they've decided to work on it. It was designed to last forever. It was one of the few pavilions that was designed to last forever. So anyway, twice a week for 2 summers, my father, I'm 11, would drop me off at the main gate of the fair at 10 in the morning, and then pick me up on his way home at the end of the day, like 9 o'clock at night.
Great.
I was on my own. Think about that. I mean, sometimes I think that maybe he was trying to get rid of me, right?
It was an era where our parents would let us do creative things ourselves at a much younger age. My mom let me go into Manhattan at the age of 8, for God's sakes.
It was a total, not that there weren't cannibals, there were.
It was a different time.
But it was a different time. So the New York World's Fair was an utter epiphany for me. I think it was the first time it really struck me that somebody has to be coming up with this stuff. They're making these, and so the fair was torn down after 2 years. I was crushed. I watched them taking all these buildings down that I loved. I have one of the street lamps in my backyard.
Oh, I know you do. And I mean, you've built up an incredible collection of architectural renderings and models of the fair build. And I mean, all this memorabilia. How'd you collect it all?
Well, I have 1, 2, 3. I have like 5 architectural models of certain pavilions. I have the Ford Pavilion, the GE Pavilion, General Motors, Futurama, and the New York State Building. And when I was going to the fair as a kid, in the Long Island Press one day, there was an article about some kid who made a scale model of the fair that lit up at night. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, that's absolutely incredible. Well, 40 years later and more, when the internet came along, I start searching for World's Fair stuff. And I see this Ford Pavilion architectural model. What the hell is this? How could this be the original model? No, it's not the original model. There's a guy living in Florida who made that model.
Wow.
And I got in touch with him, and he's the kid from the Long Island Press article.
Crazy.
Can you believe that?
I believe it.
He made me 4 different buildings that I love that are part of my collection.
That's amazing.
The fair got taken apart. I was crushed. But a year later, Star Trek premiered on NBC. And it was like nothing else. And it was like my consolation prize for the New York World's Fair.
It was like a little bit of a bridge of continuity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always looked at the fair and said, this is ground zero Star Trek architectural design right here, the designs. And I always told Mike Okuda, I said, Mike, I'll bet you anything that Matt Jeffries went to the New York World's Fair. I had World's Fair stuff tacked on the board in the art department. We used it anywhere we could. And then one day we went to dinner with Matt. And I said, say, Matt, did you ever go to the 1964 World's Fair? And he just like burst into, hell yes. And we walked our legs off and it was incredible. And he says, without prompting from me, and when I got home, there was a message from a guy named Roddenberry. And I like kicked Mike under the table. I told you.
That's great. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention your wonderful wife, Dorothy Duder, who did work for Star Trek as well and was an amazing companion of yours for so many years.
Yeah, 32 years of nothing but wonderful.
And Dorothy was a food stylist for Next Generation?
No, she was a food stylist on Enterprise.
On Enterprise.
It was the first show where there really was food.
Yeah.
Everything came out of a slot, and before that. She always was an amazing cook. And it's the best fed I've ever been in my life, those 32 years. I mean, she loved making me something special every day. It was incredible. And Craig Binkley, who was this prop guy on Enterprise, they were going to have dinners now, where they were looking for something to do plot exposition and not do it in the turbolift. So they decided that they would have meals. And
so naturalistic.
And Bink started hiring food stylists. And for some reason, he's all frustrated. He says to me, Dougie, I don't know what it is. He goes, either they don't know how to show up on time or they can't grasp the concept. I mean, I don't just want, scrambled eggs. Sometimes I want flaming tart testicles, And I'm thinking, I know the person who could do this and would already understand it because she's been with me all this time, but I can't push it because sometimes if you push something towards someone, they go the other way. And I figured I'm just going to wait till it becomes completely desperate, which happened. And I said, Bink, have I got the girl for you? And I put them together and they fell in love. And the actors were so excited to see her because they knew the food they were going to have to eat was going to be great. They would eat it, take after take it. As a matter of fact, I have a blooper where Malcolm they're at a table in the mess hall, and Malcolm you could hear the suction as he's eating. And it comes time for him to do his line, and he doesn't do his line. And I forgot who the other Anthony Montgomery jumps up and goes, "You are so stupid. You are." I saved that. I gave it to him a couple of years ago. He was so excited to have it. But they loved it when she came in, and any leftovers came to the art department.
She also could set a table like nobody else. Her table settings are legendary. I was lucky enough to be the recipient of a few of those presentations myself.
She was. She loved throwing dinner parties. She loved cooking. She was a real earth mother, And it was
We all adored her, and I did have to just mention her in passing. We're out of time. Doug, well, I want to get some last minute thoughts, but first, what projects do you have coming up right now? Anything interesting that you can talk about that you were able
well,
to talk about?
Hollywood is really dead. Um, the business got knocked around by COVID, and then it got knocked around by like 2 strikes in a row.
Yeah.
And also the fact that stuff is being done all around the world now. It's not just Hollywood anymore.
Yeah.
I'm consider myself to be semi-retired, which means I'm not actively looking for work. But if something interesting happens,
Yeah.
I think that my circle of friends are mostly waiting for. There's 2 things coming up possibly that I would say yes to, and that is Orville season 4. We just had
Just cross for that.
we both had a little party just last night. All the art department from Orville and Ted. There'll probably be a Ted season 3.
All right, great.
And I'm telling you, I saw Ted season 1. It was okay, but season 2, oh my God, there were times reading the script where I had to cover my face.
Yeah.
It was so funny, so freaking funny. And we did some real far out stuff that you wouldn't expect. It was a really fun, challenging year. So those I did a design for the private sector for a welcome center at a tech company in Utah that came out. They spent a lot of money on it. It looks amazing. I'm just finishing up my memoir. And some crazy people want to do a documentary about me. So I'm like, okay, I want to know what's so interesting too.
No, it's a fascinating career. If you could kind of sum up your career in just a few words, how would you describe it?
Couldn't keep a job. I once told someone, well, I was a makeup artist, then I became a graphic designer, then I became an illustrator, then I became a VFX artist, then I became a CG supervisor, and they go, oh, can't keep a job, huh? But it's like another day, another career change. I'm not actually, if I knew I had another 50 years, maybe I'd go into wardrobe or something like that. My career has always been, always taking the box and shaking it, opening it up and see what we've got now. I could never be a makeup artist for 43 years. Never. I don't know how my friends do it. There's so many fun things happening. Why would you want to just do that for your whole life,
Well, I mean, as an artist, you've worn many hats, but you've excelled at all of them. I don't think your story is exemplified by the jobs you didn't keep. I think it's exemplified by all the amazing jobs that you did have and the ways that you, as an artist and a creative, contributed to that wonderful universe that we fans are so appreciative of.
Oh, well, thank you. I love hearing that. And as of course, as you know, I am a fan. I'm an original fan, and it's all I've ever wanted to do.
You're a fanboy like with everybody that's watching the show. And Doug, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
We
And
could talk for days.
it's great. And again, we're going to look forward to seeing you at the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, which is just coming in a few months. And we'll get you on stage. And
I hope I'll have my book out by then.
well, would love to see your memoir, and we'll do a deep dive on some of these things that we talked about.
Okay, me laddie.
Okay, Doug, thank you, brother. Very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Doug Drexler. Doug, thank you. And folks, that's all. See
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Thanks, Adam.
What an interview. The Doug Drexler. Absolutely love that guy. All right, so what's coming up on the docket? Well, we have the Creation Cruise coming up for fans of Supernatural. You do not want to miss that. We also have Trek to Chicago coming up in just a couple weeks. Check that out, creationent.com for all tickets and information. That's creationent.com. Check out the Creation Cruise for Supernatural fans and Trek to Chicago towards the end of November for Star Trek fans. Tickets are going fast for STLV. I know that's in August, but you do not want to miss that. So get your tickets right away. And that's how we're going to close out this year. Supernatural Cruise, Trek to Chicago. We hope to see you at one or both of those. That's creationent.com for all tickets and information. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And we will see you soon on the Creation Entertainment Podcast.